Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Katie Lance podcast. I'm so excited today. We have a very special guest in the house today. My next guest is a founding agent at Compass and the leader of the Halpern team. He's known for blending creativity, high level marketing, and real estate expertise in one of the most competitive markets in the world. With hundreds of transactions and a background as a musician and a producer, he brings really a unique standout approach to branding and storytelling in real estate. So happy to have you to the show. Welcome today, Steve Halpern.
Thank you so much for having me, Katie. And I have to say, it's really amazing what you do for agents and really needed in our industry. So thank you for what you do.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it so much. So I want to dig right into it and talk a little bit about differentiation and branding. And as I said, you are
Sure.
in one of the most competitive markets in the world. I love New York City. What do you think? I know you have so much experience. What do you think really makes a great real estate agent stand out in today's market?
I actually feel like there's different things for different because in a city like New York City, you have so much activity that you don't have to be one thing to get everybody. The goal is not to reach everybody. So I've always felt that being who you are and really kind of finding the way to like keep it all connected in that way allows you to connect to the people that are right for you. We're not looking to get everybody in business from everybody. There's a lot to go around. Obviously, we're competitive. We want to win business, but ultimately, what I always felt was if I'm true to who I am and I find that inspiration, it ultimately helps me perform for other people. And that always came from being myself, communicating the way that I communicate as I would with my friends, with my clients, but also building that knowledge base. So for me, I wouldn't say that there's one thing or really a list of things. I've just always felt that being myself was the thing that kind of worked in my favor.
I love that. Well, and you've really built such a strong personal brand and a team brand, which is one of the reasons why we wanted to chat today. And you've been, I feel like, so intentional about that. Can you talk a little bit about that in terms of just being intentional and how that has impacted you just over the years, or has that like evolved naturally? Would love to hear a little
Sure.
bit more about that.
To be honest, to me, I think building the team and actually getting to where we are as a team has been really one of the hardest things I've had to do as an agent and as a team leader. I think there is this dynamic that everybody thinks that growing a team is going to be something that somehow enhances and increases your business, but it also creates a lot of other dynamics that come into play. So for me, what I've always been was because I have such a dynamic personality and type of way of showcasing things and branding and marketing, I always felt that being the example and then making sure that I didn't do anything that didn't then support people who would come in. I never felt that I wanted agents who worked with me to feel like that they couldn't go and do their own things and really push their name out there. So it's always been a very intentional thing to me is to have people who want to build their own brand, but also creating a platform that allows them to build their own brand and still find something special out of what we're building. What I've learned over the years, having big teams, having small teams, having employees, having agents that work with me, I've chosen to hire people based on culture and the family vibe and energy more than I have about this person's going to be a top producer. And I think that's what I want to get behind. For me, if I don't feel good about who I'm working with and know that they're going to have my back no matter what happens, that doesn't work for me. That's just who I am. So for me, that's been the most intentional I've been about it is probably now. It's not just are we going to get along or are you doing business, but can we communicate the way that we need to? Can we support each other while we're going through life items, right? Is that the way we're going to be? And to me, that's been the most important thing over the last few years. And I think it really to me, it feels like home now. It's not just we have a bunch of people running around doing business and that's fine if that's your business model. But for me, it's just never been the way I perform best.
I love that you bring that up because I don't think anyone goes into real estate to work 24 hours a day, 24/7. And yet we see this all the time and we see a lot of
Yes.
burnout. And I
Mhm.
absolutely agree with you. I know, family is important to you. We've talked about that kind of offline. And
Mhm.
so surrounding yourself with people that, are kind of sort of like minded and There's that phrase, your vibe attracts your tribe.
100%.
Feels like you've really been able to cultivate that.
Yes. And it's taken me a long time. I think a lot of agents, as they start and maybe even start having a little success, you feel a little bit like an imposter and you're just trying to figure it out. And, it's okay. At a certain point, you realize what you need. And, I feel like I'm lucky to be in this position now to have that and that clear knowledge of what I need around me and who I want to support and, you're right, your vibe attracts your tribe, whatever, however that phrase exactly is, but it's true. I really think it's true.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
want to you want to feel good being around the people. We go through so much stress in our industry and in our lives. And to not feel like you're going to be supported by the people that are closest to you and you're working with every day feels a little funny. And as a team leader too, I see a lot of team leaders that are like looking at their agents and just saying, how much did you make last month? Right. And that agent is like, my dog died. My mom got diagnosed with an illness, and you're sitting here talking about how much money I made last month. And I'm like, for me, I would rather be able to be like, how can I help you deal with what you're dealing with and give you the space for you to deal with what you're handling, and then you're there to support me. That just seems just so much more like a better place to be.
Yeah. So I would love to ask a little bit about your background. I know
Sure.
you've got a background in music and production and which is just so unique. Can you talk a little bit about that and maybe how that has influenced where you are today? Maybe even how it's influenced how you market your listings. I was digging through your videos a little bit and I love the vibe of so much of your content. I'm wondering if that has influenced you in some ways.
Oh, definitely. So, yeah, I always say I've lived so many lives. I mean, I don't know if it's me just being a New Yorker. In New York, I started playing in bands when I was 14 or 15. And alongside playing in those bands, I was often managing and doing the bookings and all of these things. And I didn't really care so much for school so much, but, I really loved the energy around performing. Then when I went into college, continued that process, and then eventually had quite a bit of success, a lot more success than some people in regards to like toured the world as a musician, open for some of my favorite groups, The Roots, for months, and worked on major label records, had a lot of fun in that era. And then I remember clearly in 2008, 2009, I was like, I'm working so hard. I'm doing pretty well. And yet I'm basically barely scraping by. If I want to actually do something real in my life, I need to figure out if there's something else in addition to my music that could work. So I said, what if I actually was selling something that people needed? Right. And then I was like, what is that? So then housing became a real clear thing for me. And we moved around a lot as a kids. So I always remembered the energy of like going to search for apartments with my parents and like how much fun that was. I was like, maybe I'll just get my real estate license. And my whole idea there was get my real estate license to support my music career. Even though we were doing okay, it still felt like it was really hard to continue to crack that. And got my license in 2009. In 2011, I met a movie director who owned one of the craziest properties in New York City. It's a townhouse down in Soho. It was the first $100,000 a month rental in New York City. I spent about 6 months going back and forth with him, trying to figure out if I could, if we were a match in regards to taking on the listing. And what he kept coming to me about was talking about how he wanted someone who was creative, who was going to do unique things, who knew how to position the property, who knew how to communicate about the property. He took a chance on me, and I spent every penny that I had left. Your first 2 years in the industry tend to not be so great. I was doing okay, but I remember we got this property. It's a 13,000 square foot house in Soho. Like I said, it's where Beyonce shot her Halo video.
Wow.
A lot of really cool history in it. And I went and 2011, nobody was doing video. So I brought in this video crew. We did this incredible property video for it. We launched the property, and within the first 2 weeks, I shot 6 TV shows. We're written up everywhere. We're on the front page of the Wall Street Journal. All of these things came from the uniqueness of what I was presenting. And so it just started to trigger in my head. It was like, wait, you could find if you're creative in this industry, you can really stand out. So I started taking more chances when it came to every new opportunity that would come up. I was like, how do I compete with people who've been 25 years in this industry? What I have is I'm driven by creativity. It's not just a marketing piece. It's not like, so what I started to understand was by doing the creative things that I was doing, it connected me more to, so I was like, if I get really excited about what I'm presenting out there, I'm going to push way harder for people. So it really connected. So I just kept on digging into that. And I say it really is, it's kind of my fuel, right? It works as well because you get more attention. I'll never forget in 2017, we listed a $10 million house and we did this crazy video for it. We won advertising awards for it. But the first photo we we launched like a coming soon photo, and it was a family with a bunch of balloons. We actually superimposed a bunch of balloons like they were flying up into the air,
I
right?
think I watched this on your
Yeah.
website. It's so
And
cool.
and again, people still speak about that video about what the impact it had. I think Ryan Serhant actually copied it in 2 or 3 different ways, which he's we've actually spoken about a few times. But we launched this one photo of these balloons flying up. From that day forward, everybody referenced to this house as the balloon house, right? So I saw the power of like creating a brand for a property that was not something that people were really doing. Is so my approach tends to be when I have something really special, it's like, what can I pull out of this that is new and unique? And how can we create a messaging that may be different than what everybody else is doing? And it just seems to work. But it also really inspires me to push harder and do more. And I can't get over the idea of when people actually tell me how cool the stuff we do is. So I'm inspired by that. So it allows me to keep pushing. And I also love that it inspires other people and they push as well. It's like I think I'm one of those guys that for a long time I was very competitive. And now maybe as I've been in the industry for a lot longer, now I actually really appreciate when somebody else is challenging to do something fresher and using what we do as an inspiration. I actually really like that.
I think that's so cool. I mean,
Yeah.
I feel like I haven't really heard anybody talk about it or articulate creativity as sort of the fuel to your passion, as you have just
Yeah.
articulated. And I think
It's
that's
also you sell it's yeah, I was gonna say that I think also sales is about emotion, right? Like, so, I always when I sit down with the seller, I always say, you have to think about how people are gonna get emotionally connected to your property. And some of that work can be done with our messaging prior to the showing, right? And that's often what our approach is like, how does the place feel? How does it, and if we know what kind of buyer it's going to be, it's much easier for us to say, okay, how can we tell the message that we know that they're going to want to hear, right?
Mhm.
And do it ahead of time and let them validate what they're feeling when they enter the property. It's a model that works. A lot of other industries do that are marketing heavy, cosmetics industry, all kinds of arts industries. They're all about evoking something out of you first so that you take a deeper dive into it. And I find that real estate is not always that forward thinking when it comes to that. So I like being the one that really does that.
Yeah. Has there ever been something risky that you've done that you sort of pushed the envelope on and, that you thought, well, I don't know if this is going to work. And maybe it did, or maybe it didn't. I'm just curious. I love what you're talking about in terms of just evoking an emotion.
I mean, there's definitely been times where I bit off way more than I could chew, and it wasn't necessarily. I'm trying to think of a specifics, but I feel like that's kind of the business model in a lot of ways, is
Right.
right. You know what comes to mind when you're asking that question is I would say that's sometimes it's more about the personalities of the client than it is than doing something that may be risky or not. Maybe it's sometimes one of the challenges that you're dealing with is as an agent selling a product, right? You have a vision as to the way you present that product, right? But you're also dealing with somebody who is a client that has their own vision of that property. So for example, the video we were talking about, the balloon video, right? When I sent that to the seller of that property, she hated it.
Wow.
She absolutely hated it. And what was interesting is she was obviously forward thinking enough to be like, I hate this, but I see how brilliant it is and how it's going to work.
Yeah.
And we sold that property almost 10 years ago. She's a great friend. She still believe she had met with 11 agents before me, right? She just was looking for something special. But
Mhm.
there are times when you go and you do something that the client that you work for, that you have a contract with, literally hates and is trying to get you to not use it. And sometimes you have to make that concession. There's a clip out there when that house on downtown that I got that I was talking about. The first time I walked into the house, what's one of the things special about this house is when you enter the home on the ground floor, there's a window to the inside of the pool, right?
Hmm.
So it's almost like an underwater film studio, right? First time I walked in, and the only first thought that kept on coming to my head is, I want to jump into that pool with my suit on, right? And I did it, and this owner was not happy about it, but it became really talked about, right? So again, it worked, but I think that's more of the riskiness of what I've done. I've spent a lot of money on things that didn't work. Even, for example, the content series that we did, the Halpern TV series that we did, it was way ahead of its time in the industry. And I think it maybe I just wanted to create something really fun and new and unique. And maybe if I'm judging it based on how much business it produced, it was probably a failure, but in every other way, it was a success, right? So those are the kind of risks that I think I've taken.
Yeah. And you create some incredible video content. As I mentioned, I was poking around on your website, poking around on YouTube and Instagram. And, when you talk about kind of creating a brand or evoking emotion, what my mind goes to is it's really storytelling. And I feel like that's a overused word, but does that play into your marketing when you're thinking of either marketing yourself and your team or your listings, kind of thinking of what is the story of the home or what's the story of the person who or the family who might be moving in here? Is that kind of part of the process for you?
Absolutely. So I am lucky to have my best friend in the world, who I call my brother, is an amazing creative director who we've been working with for a very long time. I think that video, the balloon video, was the first one that he worked on with us. But I'm lucky to have a mix of someone who really understands how to produce something that has overarching themes, but of course it is. I mean, obviously, if you know your demographic of who's purchasing a property and you need to speak to them, that should, of course, be part of the foundation of what you're presenting. Perfect example, we have a property overlooking Lincoln Center right now that we just launched. We launched about 14 days ago. It should be in contract within the next day or so. So we got a fast deal on it. The owner's son is a really, really incredible artist. And they have the place is covered with his artwork, right? So we were like, we don't have to do anything with the artwork. And then when we were thinking about a video concept, my creative director, Alex, he was just like, I want to use the emotions of old art pieces to tell the story of this home. So we did this whole concept of video where we had a floating frame
Mm.
and you would enter into the room, and then a historic art piece would evolve into the frame and just show the emotion of that space. And like, it's incredible. It's something that I've never seen before, but it tells the full story that we're trying to tell there. It won't get out there the way I want it to get out there because we're going to be probably sell it beforehand, which is great. I don't mind, but yeah, I think definitely. And then some places you're actually trying to cover up what the past story of the home is in order to tell a new story, right? So, sometimes when something is too specific, that's one of the biggest challenges as a real estate agent. As you come into a home that someone has lived in for a long while, and the new person who's coming in is going to look at it differently, are going to be younger or quite a bit younger, and you have to tell a story that allows them to see the evolution into how they can be into that home. So, yeah, I think there are different processes that to take.
You bring up a good point of what that story is, and sometimes it's that story, like you said, the story of the home. Maybe it's something you're, trying to, I don't know, necessarily cover up, but
Um,
retell that story, or create a new story. And I love that you've got someone on your team, your brother, so to speak, right, who can help you with that. And I think that as someone who's listening to this, I would imagine a lot of agents who we work with inside of our academy, and just, I get the opportunity to work with a lot of agents all across the country and the world oftentimes, but a lot of agents are really overwhelmed by video. And
Mhm.
you've got a great team. You've got such a creative eye. But can you give any piece of advice for anybody who maybe is listening to this going, well, gosh, maybe they get overwhelmed or they're not sure where to start. I know it's a little bit of a big question, but just with your expertise, do you have any advice for
Sure.
just that person who might be feeling like a little overwhelmed, especially nowadays with all the options?
Yeah, definitely have advice for those people. Number one to me is you do not have to compete with other people. You have people who are video focused, and that is what they do. You don't necessarily have to compete with those people. So don't first. Again, I always say don't compare yourself to others. But what I would say is have some fun. Like just have some fun with it and play with it and get it. I mean, get outside your comfort zone a little bit and actually just start somewhere and like be like maybe it's hard for me to really understand because I have such a because I was on stage and like to me that energy is so inspiring. I know a lot of people, even other members of my team, who just they can't function in front of a camera. But I feel like we take ourselves too seriously, and the first thing advice would be like just find something fun and do something fun with it, right? I think people will respond, especially if you're a person that is not known for being that fun, like someone who's known for being more serious and more maybe professional. I think if you do something that gets you out of that, it's going to open up your world and people are going to respond more favorably to that. But I think, again, I hate to say it, but you just got to do
Yeah.
something, right? And don't overjudge every moment, especially if you're working in the social media realm, about being in the moment and not overthinking it. Some things hit, some things don't hit. And sometimes the things that hit are not the things that you would think would hit, the things that we try and calculate, right?
Right.
It's true.
It's
It's
always
true.
the
And
thing where we're like, oh, this is going to hit. No, that
yes,
doesn't.
have you ever seen the clip that Mike Heggie did, the breathing where he's like, I gave my Gen Z editor, asked him for an edit, and he edited all his breathing.
Oh, I think I
No,
have seen
and
that.
it went super viral. It went super viral, right?
Yeah.
Like, Mike is a good friend of mine, and it's just like, you could have never calculated that. That was like literally a funny moment,
Yeah.
collaboration, but if he wouldn't have given the space to the person that he works with to go and do something humorous, if you had such a calculation that you didn't have any variability, like it wouldn't have worked, right? And I think he was on the Today Show. I think he had like over 100 million views on that video,
Wow.
right? And you're like, but you couldn't have created that. You couldn't have planned that. It was
Mm.
just a perfect moment that happened between a collaboration. So I just say, don't be so serious and just enjoy yourself, right? And like that could mean if you enjoy eating or you enjoy like food, do
Mhm.
something based around that. Like just try and be authentic to yourself. Don't try and create something that somebody else would do.
Yeah,
I'm
for
someone
sure.
who sort of lives by that. And I still sometimes I'm like, what am I trying to fit into? Right.
I think a lot of us, struggle with that or deal with that. And I find, and you've probably experienced this too, and especially when someone first starts out, they try to kind of copy or emulate people that they admire. They're like, I like that. I'm going to do that. I like that style. And it almost takes going through that process to figure out who they are, what they like, what they don't like. And really, like to your point, to be authentic, which is a little bit of a buzzword, but the more you put out there, I'm sure you would agree, the more you can have fun, the more you'll have those sort of moments in a bottle that you didn't expect.
And when
Like,
you do that and you copy or you would, or you duplicate and you go and you take something that works for somebody else and you go and do it, at
yeah.
least you're putting yourself out there. At a certain point, you're going to get that. Doing that is going to make you more comfortable to find your own idea.
Yeah.
And I'd rather you do that than you do nothing, right? Like to me, like that's okay too, especially look at somebody in other markets and say, how can I bring that kind of content into my market? There's nothing wrong with that. Taking something that works and making it your own as a musician. I mean, we talk about this all the time because think about the industry. There's 12 notes, right? Like how much music has been created with 12 notes. And, like inspirations and generations have changed in the way that they use it. And we take and we use and we do that. Just don't overthink it and just kind of go for it, I think,
I
in
love it.
some way.
Yeah, 12 notes.
Yeah, exactly.
12
That's
notes.
Exactly. It's crazy. You even take something that was created and turn it into something completely different and still have it in there. I mean, again, it's where we are right now.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Okay, last question. This is kind of a fun question. What are you listening to right now? You're a music guy. Anything fun that you are loving? Anything old? Anything new? I'm just curious. This was not on my list of questions, but
Sure, please.
I'm just curious.
Interestingly enough, and I don't speak Spanish, I am a massive Bad Bunny fan. I
Oh,
am big into, as it because been a DJ forever for over 30 years. And so
yeah.
to me, I've listened to such a wide range of music, and there's so much good music that's coming out right now. So like reggaeton and like I love it. And met my wife, I remember very clearly one of the things she said in probably one of our first dates is she's like, "Where am I gonna find a white guy that likes reggaeton as much as you do?" And I was like, "I'm the only one,
You're one of a kind.
I'm one of a kind." So I'm a big Bad Bunny fan, and it always inspires me, even though I don't even actually understand the words.
Same.
So to me, that says a lot because that's exactly what we're talking about when it comes to emotion. The emotion that comes from that music, you don't even have to know the words. You kind of get what you get the content, you get the topic, right? That's pretty special. I think about what did I listen to this morning in the gym? Interestingly enough, similarly to Bad Bunny, around that same genre, my nearly 3-year-old daughter loves Celia Cruz and likes so seeing that, but so much music on repeat. And what's interesting is I'll go from like old, I grew up in the grunge era. I'm still listening to that sometimes. I'm a vinyl collector. I have a wall of records in my apartment, right?
Mm,
So I have such a range of music there. But if you're gonna ask me, it's more, more Latin music
love
now.
that.
I'm just inspired by the adversity that industry that these artists had to go through, and then to see them breaking through in such an amazing way with such a deep culture. I feel like there's not much else that's coming out that has that much depth in communication that I'm experiencing. So yeah, definitely where my head is at right now.
That's awesome. I gotta pull up some Bad Bunny after our thing. Get fired
I
up.
just I just surprised Jackie with we're gonna go see him in Paris
Ah,
for our anniversary,
oh, that's wonderful.
which is crazy. So
Pretty. I love it.
me too. I can't wait. I'm so excited.
That is awesome. Well, anything else you'd like to add, Steve, before we get to the end here today? This has been such a great conversation.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the only thing I want to, I want to say, because I know you have a wider audience. I think I just want to communicate to as many people from our industry that are watching that there's a lot of stuff that goes on in our world and media around our businesses that is pointed. Obviously, Compass is the largest company, but I started when it was nothing. To me, I just think collaboration in all industries and, really trying to make our experiences better amongst our colleagues and supporting each other, no matter who you work for, all those kinds of things. I think that's just going to better our industry, and I think is really important. So for me, just if I'm giving a message, it's like, let's not take ourselves so seriously, and let's just like enjoy what we do and find our people. And when you see people doing good things, support them and give them love and appreciation. And to me, that's what we're here for. It's not just to make money, it's to find joy in our worlds and spread that. So if I'm going to give a message, that's going to be my message is like, give as much love as you can and take care of the people around you and make them feel as good as you can.
I love that.
Yeah.
And where
Let's say spread love. It's the Brooklyn way. We can end with on a Biggie quote for sure.
I love it. What's the best place for people to find you or connect with you if they would like to reach out?
I think as Halpern on Instagram or the Halpern team on Instagram is probably the one that we're most active in. Anybody could text me, call me anytime. I'm a fan of people reaching out, and I really do enjoy connecting with as many people who like what they're doing as much as I can. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, we will drop
Thank
all
you so
your
much for having me.
oh, thank you, Steve. This has been fantastic. We will make
Great.
sure to drop all your contact info below. And if you can stay on for just one moment, I'm
Sure.
going to wrap it up here. But yeah, just a big thanks to Steve for being here today. This is fantastic. We love talking to folks in the industry and hearing what they're doing, in the creative space and the real estate space and life, because that's what it's all about. Big thanks to Steve. If you enjoyed this, we would love to hear from you. Please feel free to comment below wherever you're watching this. If you're watching this on YouTube or if you're listening on a various podcast platform, the best thing you can do is share it out, tell a friend. We appreciate it. Hit that subscribe button. And if you'd like more information about me and what we do, you can go to katielance.com. Thanks so much, and we'll see you soon on the next podcast. Bye for now.